It's not for me. If those 4 words were used more often, I'm telling you, the trajectory of the human race would be catapulted in the opposite direction. We would be so far ahead, it's not even funny. Recently on the TL, I've been seeing a lot of people just throw unnecessary slander in places where it does not need to be, against characters, against books, against writers, and all of that, and causing unnecessary conflict within the comic book community, and even just normie spaces. Like, it doesn't need to happen. It is unnecessary. And since the internet is such a connected place, people who aren't just diehards are getting this info as well, and usually because the internet is a hive mind, it leads to a lot of negative opinions just being funneled in one direction. A lot of stuff in the comic book community is just something that people say, and then people just come out and be like, oh, this is the way that it is. Take, for example, one of my favorite characters of all time, Daredevil. A lot of people in the comic book space, in TikTok and Twitter, they like to say that he has no bad runs in the modern era other than his OG run. That could not be further from the case. Yes, he's probably one of the more consistent characters in Marvel, but let's go through his track record. Shadowland is complete garbage. Recently, Ahmed's run is so bad that I actually had to stop. I don't remember the last time I stopped reading Daredevil outright. Even in the Zdarsky run, I felt like it fell off halfway through, and that book gets way too much glaze for being a rehash of other story arcs that already happened, but done way better. The problem is that the intro is just so good, and the art and the way that Zdarsky writes Daredevil with so much aura, like the lines, you could tell that this man wrote this book specifically for people to make edits of. It's really fascinating to see. But in general, one word that really got me ticked off that is used a lot more recently is the word slop, which really just means something is so bad that you don't really need to talk about it, and if you do, it's for the purposes of dunking on it. And this word should be banned at this point because I saw something called premise slop. It's the made-up concept that books have really good ideas, but the execution is lacking. And yes, while there is a subgenre of comics, people have been using that way too freely. I saw it used on a post talking about the absolute and ultimate universes along with a bunch of Grant Morrison works. And honestly, it's just the most pretentious thing I've ever seen, while also being the most bird brain thing ever, because it's just an easy way to get out of actually critically analyzing a work and actually looking at all of its faults from an objective standpoint. It's just throwing a word on there and forgetting any of the argumentative purposes of being online and giving your opinion. You're making the people that are angry more pretentious because of your pretentiousness. How is that possible? It made an entire loop. This paradox that was made because of this word is dumbfoundingly stupid. However, is there a book that falls under the category of premise slop? Does that word have any merit? And by looking down in the comment section, because I can't use my brain for this, I saw somebody, a user of the name of Silver Jojo, check him out, say that Wonder Woman Earth 1 might actually qualify here, and I think that does make sense because Grant Morrison is known for using a lot of ideas, getting a bunch of them from past versions of the character from the Golden and Silver Age, modernizing it, respinning it, putting it in a blender, and making it his own, while also caring delicately about the works that were done decades beforehand. While I do enjoy that first book, as it goes on, I start to like it a bit less and less, even though I still think it's pretty solid. And Morrison, for the most part, if I take enough time to think about it and really see the themes that he's laying down, I will like it in some form or fashion. But what really got me messed up was this way of looking at slop and how they actually put that onto writers. Recently, they have been turning on some of the greats. They've been turning on Jonathan Hickman for Imperial, as if one work completely changes everything that you've done in the past. Even something like The Ultimates by Dennis Camp, which I hope I pronounce his name right, but even something like that, people are honestly falling out with these writers and calling them out for being hacks or not actually good at writing or fooling people or whatever that is, just for not writing consistently peak. Just because Ryan North is now on a relaunch of Fantastic Four, it doesn't exactly mean that the quality is going to stay the same. And that fourth issue I thought was really good. And Dennis Camp on Ultimates, just because he doesn't make one peak issue and he makes a good issue, suddenly there's something wrong with his writing and now he's overglazed. Why do we do that as a community? Why are we so in need to hate something? In my opinion, I try my best to love a book. If I don't understand it, I'm not going to come on here and say this is garbage, this is trash. No, I'm going to see and scuttle through forums, other fan perspectives, even taking another reread, maybe slowing down my reading and trying to pick it apart piece by piece and then putting it back together and seeing if it sticks. A lot of works I end up liking it, even if there is a moment where the book doesn't land. If like 90 to 99% of it was really good, I'm not going to call a book bad, because if the book didn't exist, we wouldn't have gotten all of that experimental stuff. Multiversity, I am looking at you. Great, fantastic experimental book that had a decent ending. That's fine with me, because that was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, an experience that could only be felt by reading a Grant Morrison DC comic. But it doesn't stop there. Pretentiousness in comic books have expanded to the point of not liking very popular media, which you don't have to like everything that everyone likes, but I feel like a lot of people just say things just to be a contrarian, and even if they don't, you have to remember the hive mind effect, right? People say one thing and then it multiplies under other accounts. For example, a lot of people say they don't like All-Star Superman. That's completely fine, but the worst offender of this, in my opinion, was The Dark Knight Returns. There is a lot of people switching up on The Dark Knight Returns and Frank Miller. A lot of his Batman work post-1987 is quite questionable for the most part, but when it comes to DKR, it's so foundational for the Batman mythos, the psychology of Batman, the way that the villains are used as mirrors, Jason being dead, and so on and so forth. The way that Gotham is portrayed, the Batman and Superman fight, a lot of this, as you know, is very influential, and that is partially the reason why a lot of people dislike it, is because of its influence. And yes, while you could have that opinion all you like, that does not take away from the fact that it is a top 10 Batman comic of all time. It's one of those things that once you read a lot of Batman comics, you're gonna come back to it and say, yeah, this was still peak. But it doesn't just end there, because I also want to talk about the status quo. A lot of people like to say that comic books don't change, and yes, there is a cyclical aspect to it, but at the end of the day, if a new writer comes onto the book and adds new concepts, new ideas, even the most static character can have interesting reinventions, right? A character that has gone through all of their character development is basically a strong foundation and is already fully formed, can still have good stories. Getting back to my point about just saying that it isn't for me, a lot of people will see something that goes completely against the grain, maybe something like Cy Spurrier's Flash, the first 12, 13 issues in particular, and just go completely against it. I've seen people say the same thing about Morrison. I've seen people say the same thing about like Dan Waters and a bunch of the more high concept writers, and it's like, just because you don't understand it or fully interpret what they're trying to do doesn't make it bad. Yes, the way that their books work doesn't work the same way as a traditional good superhero book would be, because they're going into a different bag. Not that their work is better than any really great traditional superhero comic, but is that it takes a different level of thinking. Sometimes you just gotta rewire your mind and get onto that playing field. Meet the writer with what they're trying to do, pick up what they're placing down, and see if it's bad on that merit. Not just say it's bad because it isn't the Flash book that you wanted, it isn't the Jeremy Adams Family Fun book that you wanted. If I'm looking at it from an objective standpoint, it probably has the best character work out of any Wally West or even just Flash book in the 2010s, and obviously it isn't even a high bar to clear. But in general, you don't have to call something bad just like that, because for the most part, a lot of these guys don't even have a reason to say why it is that way. Same thing with Dan Waters. A lot of people love his Azrael book or his Nightwing book, but then there is going to be some people here and there that don't like it for whatever reason, and they don't really give a reason why. They say that it isn't Nightwing, it isn't the street level Nightwing that I want. Well, guess what? There is so many other books that you could read that was that. Why don't we try something new? What is holding us back? It's the fans. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Fans are also very detrimental to a character's progression and their trajectory. Yes, a lot of people like to say that the writers are at fault, and yes, they do take half the blame, maybe even 75%, but a lot of the times it goes back to the fan base and them not supporting a book, them not pushing a book, them not going out and buying it, or even just them pushing back against an idea because it isn't the idyllic platonic version of what they want the book to be. All these simple things really just come together to really ruin a book's life cycle and getting it canceled. A lot of the times, you just have to let a book play out. You might not like a book as it's getting produced, but just let the writers cook. You don't have to drop a hate train on it every single issue and hate read it. How about you wait until everything is out and then read from there and base your merits on it? Not everything needs an opinion, especially if you're not taking the effort to analyze and critique it from a fair manner, right? If you're gonna have your own biases against it, why don't you just let it be and say, it is not for me? That is the simplest thing you can do to keep your peace and the peace of those who actually like the book. But what do you guys think? This is just a rant on my part, just literally just dilly-dallying. Not that many jokes today, I'm sorry for my stand-up comedian act, it's kind of failing right now. But I feel like this needs to be talked about. The pretentious fan epidemic is really getting out of hand, and it's been pushed by people who don't even know how to be pretentious in the first place. It's just pretentious Olympics at this point, just doing it for the sake of doing it, and you're not even going to get a medal. You're not even verified to get paid off your drama. You're just doing it for the love of the game. And honestly, you might need to be taken out. Watch your back. I'm gonna go on the black market and hire a hitman. No, but seriously guys, what do you think? Should audience members really give books the chance they need to really flesh out their story? Do you believe that a lot of people are too quick to call things slop just to be against the grain? And do you think that a lot of readers actually interact with art in very bad faith, and they aren't trying their best to see what a book is trying to do on a thematic and conceptual level? And even if you don't like the book, you could just say it's not for me, especially if a lot of people like it already. You could say, I know a book is good, but I just don't resonate with it. That is a better response, and we would just be further ahead as a community. But yeah guys, let me know down below what you think. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. But yeah, see you all later, take care, deuces, peace.